Hello and welcome to our tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to use some motion capture data, and we have no armature, no skeleton here to animate, so we're going to prepare for that before we import motion data. So I'm going to get rid of some of these mirror modifiers. So I'm going to apply mirror modifiers to these buttons, and then I'm going to select them, and then actually select this body and apply the mirror modifier there. Obviously you would only do this when you are completely happy with how it's made, so Control J. So these buttons here, we'll select them, Control J, so now all are one continuous mesh. We'll select the head, it already has its mirror modifier applied, Control J. The helmet, I need to apply its mirror modifier, and select here Control J. Now we're leaving the two eyeballs separate for now, just in case we want to rotate them separately. So now when I go G, everything moves except the eyeballs. Very good. So now what I want to do is I want to bring in my motion capture data. So before I do that, we'll just have a quick look at this folder here. So I've made a folder on my desktop called mocap, and in this I have a whole series of bits of data here. Most of these are what are called BVH files, which is a kind of a hierarchy of motion data, and we'll have a look in Blender at how it works in a little while. And there's other tutorials out there on this, and I've gathered this information from them. So we're going to use this and these two in what we're doing today. The reason we're going to select these as opposed to some of these other ones here is the skeleton in these ones is more complex and will take longer to do. So just for in terms of a concise tutorial, we'll try and use these two here. So we're going to start with this file here, dance BVH. So in Blender there is an import function for motion data, but it has to be in this format here, BVH, so sometimes you need to convert to this format. So it's going to ask me what do I want to import, so oops, I'm going to go to dance and dance, that one there, and import it. Now we don't see anything, and that's because it's enormous. So we'll scale this down till it's approximately the size of our character. And I'm just going to press Alt-A for play. So this is the motion data that somebody else has very generously recorded and then made available to us. Now let's have a look at how this works. So I'm going to go back to a more conventional sort of setup here. So I'm going to bring this across and bring my properties window up here, and I'm going to create a timeline, and I'm also going to create here a dope sheet. So here is a whole load of keyframes, and each one of these keyframes corresponds to one of these bones. So I'm going to turn on names here, and actually what I meant to do is turn on names here, so we can see the individual names of the bones. That's the chest bone, the hip, upper leg, etc. So if we were to examine all of these, so you can see here it says chest on X, Y, and Z. So all of these keyframes here are on the different sort of rotation settings for each of the bones, on a rotation on each axis. So so that's this dance is all of these keyframes added together. Now if we go to the text editor and we can look at let's open this BVH file. Actually, let's not do that. I'll actually show you the file, the data in the file a different way in a moment. So we'll go back to our dope sheet and we'll go to our action editor. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get this skeleton to line up here to our character. So how are we going to do that? Well, there are a number of ways to do it, but the easiest way for us to do it is to, first of all, go into edit mode for the skeleton. The skeleton is down here. Now, I have two choices. I can move the mesh down to match the skeleton, or I can move the skeleton up to match the mesh. Now, if I move the skeleton up, then when I animate, it'll be floating up in the air. So rather than doing that, I'm going to select my mesh and my eyes, and I'm going to move these down. I'm going to go GZ and move that to approximately there. Now, so now what I'm going to do is, in edit mode, I'm going to reposition these bones to match my rig. So I'm just holding down Shift, and I could go into turn on X-ray and go into solid mode. And so on each, these bones are not connected. So every time I'm selecting, I'm actually selecting two bones, apart from this end one here. Now, this looks fine in this view, but when I return in 3D space, you can see they're not aligned. But we'll come back and fix that in a few minutes. So I'm going to select both of these and place them on the joints. And place that there. Now, so I'm going to try and, again, it's important that we place these where our, if we go into wireframe mode here, where we've added in, so there's extra geometry here to bend and extra geometry here on the knees to bend. So it's important that that is set correctly. And I'm going to place this here in the middle, and we're going to have to reposition all of these. And there and there. Now I'm going to take my hip and place that just there, and bring this to here. Actually, we'll bring that up a little bit higher. Bring it up to about there, to the first button. And I'm going to bring the neck down. And bring the head down to there. Now, we're going to try and align these now in this axis. Now, so the more accurate we are here in selecting or positioning the bones, the better our animation will be. Okay, so that's not too bad at all. So we're going to go now from pose position over here to rest position. And the rest position is basically the position of the skeleton in edit mode. So this is it posed, this is it in, you know, after you've keyframed it. But if we were to reset all of its reset it to its sort of default, its repose position, that's this here. So that's when we went into edit mode and we changed this. We are setting this up so we can make this work for us. So the procedure now is, if I select the mesh, I just want to show you this, under vertex groups here, there are none. We're going to populate this window now in a second. So I'm going to select my mesh, then shift select the skeleton. Oops, so mesh and then skeleton, and you go control P, and I'm going to select this option here with automatic weights. And it says, you know, failed to find a solution for some of the bones. That's fine. So I'm going to go back here to my mesh. So I'm not on the skeleton at all now, just the mesh. But what it has done, it hasn't made it all work, but it has generated all these vertex groups. And basically what we have now is a group named, each group is named after a bone. And what we're going to do is we are going to associate vertices with each bone. And this is a slightly time consuming process, but you know, very rewarding in the end because it'll all look very good. So we're going to start with, this is left and this is right. The character's left, the character's right. We can, if we want, if you go into solid mode, you can see it's left foot, right foot. So let's go into edit mode here, and let's select one vert and press L. I'm going to go to the left foot. Now actually let me deselect everything first. I'm going to go select. So there are no vertices assigned to this bone. So normally in this process you would have verts assigned, but none of them have been assigned, which is actually quite advantageous. It means we don't have to delete any. So I'm going to go L and select that, and then select one in here and press L again. So the ankle and the shoe are now selected, and I'm going to go assign. So they're assigned to that left foot, and then I'm going to press H and hide them. I was going to save as I go here. I'm going to do the same for the right foot. So I'm going to go L, L, right foot, assign, hide. Feet are done. So now we have right lower leg. So I'm going to press B and select all the geometry I want for this right lower leg, which is all this here. Assign. And when I'm happy I've got it all, now I've actually got extra geometry here I didn't want, so I'm going to go remove and see, deselect that and go assign and hide. And I'm going to select these guys here, so they should have been on the right foot. Assign them and then hide. Now, and I've got the same over here, so I'm going to select these guys here and go to the left foot, assign and hide. Now I need to do my left lower leg, which is that there. So assign and hide. Now I'm going to do left upper leg, so I'm going to go B and draw across there. We might as well get ourselves that there. So I'm going to go, that's left leg upper, assign, and H for hide. And I may have done too much, I think, there, so let's undo that. So go remove, and we will go C and remove this top layer. Oops. Now, so I'm going to assign this to the upper leg, so assign and then hide, and then the equivalent over here, so I'm going to go select and go right leg upper, assign and hide. Now the hip bone is here, and we set it up so it basically goes as far as the first button. So we're going to select this area here. We're going to select the hips and go assign and then H for hide. Now, as before, we have a few left over here, a few verts, so I'm going to select them. Hips is still selected, and I'm going to assign them and then hide. Now, we want to do the chest area. So, I'm going to go L, and that takes all of the body. Now I don't want the arms, so I'm going to go C for circle select and deselect the arms, and I also want to deselect that loop. So I want all of that and the buttons, so B, and I'm just selecting these buttons here. if I get the very base of the neck, that won't be a catastrophe. So I think I've got it all there. Okay, so that is going to be the chest area, which is quite large. So assign, and then H for hide. Now we're going to do the, we're going to leave the collar. So we're going to do left upper arm, which is going to be that loop 2, 3, oops, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do those 4 and assign that as the upper arm, and then hide. And do the same over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is going to be the right upper arm. Assign and hide. And then we're going to do the right lower arm, which is actually easier to do in solid mode, I think. So I'm just selecting loops. And then I'm going to go back to wireframe mode and select one more, that one. So I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to go right lower, assign and hide, and then just draw a big box around the entire hand. That's going to be my right hand. Assign and hide. So let's go over here, and we're going to go to the left lower arm. And we'll just save this now before we have a catastrophe. 1, 2, 3. Go into solid mode again. So that one, that one, that one. Okay, so not that one, that one. And then these end ones, 1, 2, 3. So this is left lower, so assign and hide, and then the rest of this is the hand. So all of that, left hand, assign. Now, we can hide that. So now we're going to go in here and select this and that. Yep, so that area there, so that's going to be my neck. And I'm going to assign that, and then hide it. And then everything else, keeping in mind that the eyeballs are not selected, because they're not part of this object, is going to be part of the head. Assign and hide. So I should have no verts left. So let's go Alt H for unhide and go into edit mode. Now I'm going to select the skeleton and set up the eyeballs. So I'm going to go into edit mode and select the head bone. So that's the last bone, the last active bone. And then I'm going to select the eyeball and then the rig. Whoops. So eyeball, and then it doesn't actually matter where I select. So where's a convenient spot to select here? This guy. I go Control P to bone. I'm going to do the same with the other eye. So select the eyeball and then select the rig, Control P to bone. So that means that when the head bone moves, the two spheres will follow that bone in its entirety. Okay, so let's just save this. And then let's go to pose mode. So now we have our character completely linked to this skeleton. Now, obviously the skeleton was made without the character, so some of this, the deformation in this isn't perfect. You can see I need to bring my shoulder bones back a little because there's sort of an extra joint at the top of the arm, but these are all things I can tweak in the edit mode of the skeleton. And now we're just going to press play and see some dancing. Now again, the deformation is not perfect at all, but it's more the principle that we're looking for. So here we can see, so we're only getting a very short, like this is not playing back at full speed, so this isn't playing back at like 5 frames a second, so it'll be a lot faster than this in the actual animation. when we render it out. Obviously we can't see everything through the camera, but we can fix all that. So I can press pause here and go into material mode, and actually let's just jump very quickly into rendered mode. So that's it rendered out. We can just pick a random frame, and he's not looking terribly healthy in some of these, but that's okay. And we'll go back towards the start. So so that's how we attach motion data to our rig. Now there's a couple of other ways we can do that. So I can go File, and then I'm going to go Save. Oh, I have saved the wrong one. That's okay. So actually let's go File, Save As, and that's the one I wanted to save. There we go. So so what we have now is our character attached to the skeleton. The skeleton can move. That's fine, but what about I have this where is my mocap folder? So I have this jump kick one here. Now it's set at 7 frames a second, so this is an animation I'm going to need to retime, but we'll worry about that when we get in. So how do I get that information in? How do I get that to attach to this rig? So it would be, to have to go through the pairing of the skeleton to the mesh every time would be very laborious. So instead of doing that, we're going to go File, New, and we'll delete the default cube. And in this blend file here, I'm going to import the motion capture data. I'm going to go to my desktop and my mocap folder. I'm going to take this jump information in, and there it is. So I'm not going to do anything with it except save it. So I'm going to go Save As, and we'll call it Jump Mocap, and put it into our mocap folder and hit Save. So now I don't need it. I'm going to go back now to my file. So let's split this view and see what we've got. Go to the dope sheet and then to the action editor. So these are all the keyframes on the skeleton, so we can dance. Now when I go File, Import BVH, it will import another skeleton. So I don't want that. I've already got a skeleton. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Append, and that's how we access information in other blend files. So in this mocap folder here, we have our jump mocap blend file. So just let me show you that again. So this is an actual blend file. And when I click on it, it opens up a whole bunch of folders. So if I had a mesh in here, I could go in and import a mesh from another file. But in this instance here, we want to go to Action and import the keyframes. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of an important part of the process. I'm going to hit this F here, and that basically tells Blender to save things regardless of whether they're in use or not. And if you look here, it says there's a second action that we've imported, and that's this action here. Now let's just move ourselves down here. And again, I'm going to hit F for that, so it'll be saved regardless of whether it's being in use or not. So if I, this is a much shorter animation, but we'll have a look why in a second. So that's a flying kick that somebody has recorded, so we'll just look at that again. So we'll press play. And big flying kick. Right. Now, that's someone's recorded that but then change the frame rate. So let's have a look at how we deal with that. So in our action editor, these are all the keyframes. Now this, and I just noticed from the website I downloaded it from, this should be about 120 frames long. So to make it longer, you literally just need to press S to scale, and it scales, as you can see, around the play marker. So we go to frame 1, and then I'm going to press S, and I want this to be, there's 120 frames there, so I'm going to go press S, scale this up until it's about 120 frames. So roughly there. And then we'll go start end, we'll put in 120. And now when we play this, it will be slower, but probably more realistic from the data that was saved. Again, it's not playing back at the correct frame rate, so it's like it's playing back in slow motion at the moment. But you can see that it works. So if we look through the camera here, he's gone off screen, so let's zoom out a little bit on the camera. So we'll change our focal length to be a bit wider, and so that's our kick, and let's just press F12 and see how crazily distorted the character is. But you can see that the process is quite straightforward in terms of we can import quite a lot of motion data and have numerous sort of actions that we've recorded as in BVH format, and then apply them to our character, who we cannot see because he's not very well lit, but I won't cry over that. And we'll go to material mode, and we can see that he's doing a flying kick there. So we are 27 minutes in, so nearly half an hour. So we've done quite a bit in that. In half an hour, we have managed to take a mesh, join it together. We have taken motion capture data in the form of an armature in a BVH file. We've got the skeleton to animate the mesh, and then we've imported in a second animation from appending it in from another blend file in order to get a second animation, mocap animation, onto our rig. So we're going to leave it at that, and this is what we'll be doing in class next week.